Let's do it.
Welcome to the latest BuffZone podcast, and I'm Brian Howell. Please be joined once again by my colleague Pat Rooney. And Pat, how you doing today?
Doing well. Been relegated to the basement this week, so hope everyone can see me all right. It's a little dark down here in the man cave, but kids are out of school, so I have to hide where it's quiet.
In your own house, you're relegated to the basement.
That's all right. That happens often in this house.
Well, hey, who's not in the basement is the Buffs. They're playing some good football,
Yeah.
even though they didn't play their best game last week against Kansas State. But still, even though they didn't play their best football, they almost won the game. But they're still in a good spot halfway through the season. So we get to start the second half of the season, this week against Arizona. So it should be a fun one down in Tucson.
Hard to believe it's halfway over already, right?
I know.
We always talk about it, just time flies. But heck of a game last Saturday at Folsom. Just too many little mistakes for the Buffs that tipped the scales in that one. Great game. But like you said, we talked about this last week. A loss against Kansas State doesn't necessarily ruin the goals in front of you. They're still right in the mix of things in the Big 12, as you alluded to, and
Mhm.
a chance to maybe pick up a road win this week.
Yeah, there's a great opportunity here against Arizona, which we thought was going to be a really good team coming into the year. They were a top 25 team in the preseason poll, but has really been struggling and not what we thought they were going to be. They're sitting at 3-3, 1-2 in the conference, and the narratives out of there are, you know, the offense is a mess. They've got some injuries on defense, and I even seen now this is not unusual to Arizona because fans overreact sometimes. But there's even some chatter of is Brent Brennan the right coach for them? Only 6 games into his tenure, so um,
6 games in.
yeah, things are not going great for Arizona right now. They're very talented and could absolutely rise up and win this football game. But this, to me, is a golden opportunity for Colorado to go down on the road and pick up a win against a team that's a little bit wounded right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one thing about those preseason polls, and we've talked about it, that, there's always going to be a few teams that are exceeding expectations. BYU obviously is a prime example of that in the Big
Yeah.
12 this year. And then
Mhm.
there's going to be a handful of teams that kind of slip off the base. There's a few of those in the Big 12 this year. If you look at who was ranked at the beginning of the year and you look at the preseason poll, certainly Arizona is one of the main culprits in that boat. For me, the surprise thing has been that offense, Arizona. We kind of figured they might profile similar to the Buffs, where at the end of, win or lose, this was going to be a team that would be able to move the ball and put up some points on the scoreboard. Hasn't quite played out like that. Quarterback Noah Fafita's got more interceptions than touchdown passes going into this one, which is completely shocking halfway through the season. So
Yeah.
certainly an opportunity for the Buffs. Road wins are hard to come by in this league. The Buffs have generally played well on the road. So a great opportunity here. This was kind of, beginning here, you thought this might be a loss, right? Going down there, it's on the road against a team that was, like you said, preseason top 25 team. But now this is a real opportunity for the Buffs to kind of further entrench themselves among the front runners in the league.
Yeah, and you mentioned Fafita, he had a great coming out party last year, was not the starter at the beginning of the year, but then takes over the starting job and winds up, he set the school record for completion percentage and was just phenomenal last year. This year, he's not even throwing 60% or completing 60% of his passes. You mentioned more interceptions than touchdowns, and it's just been a struggle. I mean, a lot of what they did came in that opener against New Mexico when they put up, I think it was 63
Yeah.
points. They're under 20 points a game since then. So they've really struggled, but you know, they still have him and they still have Tetro McMillan and they got Montana Lamonius Craig. So they got some guys that can turn it on. I mean, I've seen them several times because they're on late a lot and after the Buffs play, well, the Buffs have been on late too, but sometimes after the Buffs will play, you'll see Arizona playing a little bit. Um, they've still got talent. They're still dangerous, but I just think this is an opportunity for the Buffs.
Absolutely, it is. And one of the things, I think one of the things to keep an eye on is obviously the situation at receiver for the Buffs. Marion Miller looks like done for the season after the injury this past week. We saw Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter also go down. Sounds like they're going to play this week. I guess one thing to look out for is just how effective they will be. Especially with Jimmy Horn, the leg injury. Is he going to be able to cut and move the way he expects to out there, the way he needs to? And Travis Hunter, I personally have gotten, there was a time where we maybe have questioned just how much Travis Hunter can play on both sides of the ball. Is it going to catch up with him? I'm past that. He obviously can handle the workload. He's clearly a unique talent in that regard. However, this week, coming off the injury, is that something they're going to have to watch this week? Is it something that's going to limit his effectiveness maybe on one side of the ball or the other? Going into this one. So certainly something to watch. I still feel like they're going to need to look at some of those young receivers coming into this one.
Hmm.
Depending, maybe Jimmy Horn is just fine, but as it stands, I think that's something that's going to, you know, something to look out for, especially early in that game as the Buffs get rolling to see just how effective those two are coming off the injuries.
Yeah, and I didn't even see it during the game. Will Shepherd being injured was not even a thing on Saturday night
Yeah.
because they mentioned four receivers going down. Well, this week, Coach Prime and the receivers coach Jason Phillips had mentioned that Will Shepherd looks to be okay. I didn't even know something happened to him. So really, five receivers got dinged up last week. Each of their top, well, not each because LeJohntay Wester wasn't one, but most of their top five got dinged up last week, and so it looks like they'll all be back other than Omari Miller. But I'm with you that how effective are they? Is this a game that maybe um, instead of 120 snaps, maybe Travis plays 80, and maybe you say, hey, you're coming back from injury. Maybe instead of every series, you know, we can limit you a little bit, have a pitch count, so to speak. And the one thing is, we know they can play corner outside of Travis. We've seen that. And we know they got receivers outside of Travis. We've seen that. So um, I think that they have that luxury of they've got some other guys behind him if they need to go that route. But um, I still think if Travis is playing, he's probably going to play. Yeah, and that means playing
Oh
like
yeah.
he usually plays.
Yeah, that would be my guess too, but I think something certainly to look at early in this game. And
Yeah,
I think it should be another good day for the offense. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Arizona kind of comes in middle of the pack in most defensive categories coming into this one. They haven't really established anything on either side of the ball that would maybe make a team like Colorado kind of stand up and take notice into this. So despite those guys, possibly being dinged up, possibly being less than 100%, I still think it should be a good day for the offense. However, would like to see that running game get back on track.
yeah,
Shador Sanders after the game kind of deflected the lack of a run game as a product of being behind in the on the scoreboard. And that was maybe partially true later in the game. And I don't blame him for saying that. He took some heat earlier this year when it sounded like he was throwing the offensive lineman under the bus. So I don't begrudge him kind of picking his words carefully. But that wasn't really the case. When the run game was abandoned in the first half, it was still a neck and neck game. I think I wrote about a sequence where they didn't call a run play for three possessions and really only had a couple over six. And for the first part of that, the game was tied. So would like to
yeah,
see that running game get back on track. It's we've seen it. This team is so much more difficult to defend. They can still be effective without the running game. We've seen that as well. They're just so much more difficult to defend, especially up front. You get in a situation where the running game ain't happening, and those pass rushers, we've talked about before, they can just pin their ears back and come after Shador Sanders. And this team still has yet to prove that they can protect him on a regular basis. So,
yeah.
if there's something for me to watch for early in this game, it's getting that run game started again for the Buffs.
Yeah, and to your point, I was watching the first half again, and seven out of the first 17 offensive snaps were handoffs to Dallin Hayden, and he got 10 yards. So
Yeah.
seven carries, 10 yards. And then after that, 20 straight pass plays were called. and only 3 running plays the rest of the game after those first 7. So yeah, they pretty much abandoned the run. Now, I watched Shador's on his podcast this week, and he did say, "Hey, we need to get the run game established." So he knows that that's something there. Um, Coach Prime this week said that Isaiah Augusta looks like he might get the start. He's the only one of that group that has not gotten a start, and frankly, to me, he's been their best running back. And so, um, I think he's been impressive to watch at times. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Arizona State's not Kansas State. Kansas State, as I'm looking at it right now, I know part of it is because they dominated the Buffs and held them to -29, but they're the number one rush defense in the Big 12. Arizona's number 9, giving up more than twice as many yards as K-State. So Arizona is not that same type of run defense. There's opportunities here. I think it's more going to be like facing, a UCF, or a Baylor, where, you can establish running. You're not going to pick up tons of yards. We're never going to see this Buffs team, rush for 200 yards, in my opinion. But if you can get yourself to 100 yards and you're consistent with it, that's what needs to happen. And I think we will. I think we'll see it because there's more opportunities against Arizona, in my opinion.
The other side of the ball, we know Arizona's going to throw the ball, right? Can the
Yep.
Buffs pass rushers who've done a great job this year? It's definitely been one of the most improved aspects of the team to the halfway point here. But can those Buffs pass rushers get to Noah Fafita? Arizona hasn't given up a lot of sacks. I believe it's just 6 in 6 games coming into this one. So the Buffs are going to have to create some opportunities there to try to make things a little. Yes, it's 6 sacks through 6 games that Arizona's given up, but they got to find a way to make Noah Fafita uncomfortable back there. And if they can, they should be able to produce some turnovers. Like we said at the outset here, he's thrown more interceptions and he's thrown touchdowns so far.
Yeah.
The Buffs haven't been a statistically great defense, but they've been very good at the takeaways, especially lately. So if those pass rushers can get there, not even necessarily pick up the sacks, but make him, Fafita uncomfortable back there, maybe we can see some more of those big plays out of the defense.
Yeah, they've also been very good in the red zone, and Arizona's got a
Yeah.
great kicker, Tyler Loop, and I'm sure the Buffs would love to see him have a really nice game. He was 5 for 6 a couple weeks ago against Texas Tech. They would love to see that because it means he's kicking a lot of field goals and they're not scoring touchdowns. So I think the Buffs would take them putting up 18 points on the board with 6 Tyler Loop field goals. So yeah, they've been pretty good in the red zone, good with takeaways. So prediction, what do you think? Final score?
Yeah, I've wavered on this one because I keep coming back in my head. I always come back to at some point they're going to play the Buffs. I mean, our game or have their one sort of dud. And I know they've picked, Kansas State. I don't think it was a complete dud. Some of the other, Nebraska, maybe that was it. And going on the road against a team that potentially can score some points has me, I've been on the fence on this one a little bit. But the Buffs have been improved. They have kind of shown, for the most part, that except for that pass protection, all the maybe other question marks that we had coming into the season, as far as the run game at times has been answered. Obviously, they got away from it last week, but for the most part, it's been an improved run game. And up front on defense, they've been opportunistic and have been able to get to the quarterback pretty well, especially in recent weeks.
Yeah.
So I will go with the Buffs. I think it'll be a close one. I think the Buffs will find a way in the end. I'm going to say 34-31, Colorado.
All right, I'm going with the Buffs as well. I don't think it's going to be as close. I think the Buffs are set up to potentially run away with this thing. I don't think they're going to blow them out, but I'm going to go 35-24, and that they win fairly comfortably and get a nice win and get win number 5. Which they haven't done in a while. So to get 6, you got to get 5, and they haven't got number 5 in a number of years. So I think this will be a big
Yeah.
one for them, and they come away with a win.
And you get to go down there. It's going to be a surprisingly pleasant middle of the day in Tucson.
I know when I first saw the 2 p.m. kickoff, I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Because at that time it was still high 90s in Arizona, but they got a cold front coming through, so I'm excited about that, or a cold front for Arizona. So I'm excited about that,
Right.
and always like Tucson. It's one of my I've often said it's one of the more underrated trips in the Pac-12, and
Yeah,
now that they're in the Big 12. I'm glad
I,
that
I
I'm glad they're
yeah.
with in the Big 12 because I like going to Tucson.
Yeah, I'm sure we talked about this in the past, but if we had to retain a one of the two game trips from the Pac-12 era, I'm glad it was Arizona.
Mhm.
I'm not going to miss LA. Uh, Bay Area, I liked one half of the trip better than the other half. Same with Washington. I'm a big Seattle fan or visiting Seattle, but having to get across to Pullman or vice versa was always a bit of a challenge. And then Oregon, Oregon was fine, but I personally not going to miss it. Arizona, though, I'm glad that's still kind of on the docket. That's probably for me was always the most pleasant of the two game basketball trips on the ledger. So I agree with it. It's not a two game trip anymore on the basketball front. It'd be two different one game trips, but
Yeah.
glad Arizona for sure is still in the mix.
Yeah, for me, Oregon was the top trip, but Arizona is number two. So I'm glad to be going down there. I'm looking forward to it, and and obviously being in the Big 12, there's new trips. I get to go to Lubbock next month and Kansas City next month as well. And as we transition here away from football, you're going to Kansas City next week because you got Big 12
Oh, yeah.
basketball media days with the men and women, and you looking forward to that?
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a minute. Last year, you and I both, for football for you and men's basketball for me, both went and checked out the Big 12 media days to kind of get a sense of the new neighborhood a little bit where we'd be moving to, check out the new neighbors.
Yeah,
I only went to the men last year, though. I didn't go to the women's media day in Kansas City. So got a little bit of the lay of the land last year. Definitely looking forward to it. A lot of storylines, obviously, in men's basketball. The Big 12, first time ever a conference has had five top 10 teams in the preseason
Mhm.
AP top 25 like the Big 12 does this year. Kansas took the top spot. Then behind them, they've got Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and then Arizona at number 10, kind of rounding it out. Be great to see all those coaches and the women as well. New league, new rivalries. I haven't gotten to catch up with J.R. Payne as much in the preseason as you have. So looking forward to kind of getting her thoughts and some of the players' thoughts on some of the new rivalries that you mentioned, some of these new trips. And old friend Aaronette Von Lay, I don't know, I haven't seen the list if she's going to physically be there as part of the Baylor contingent. But obviously, she's still in the Big 12, and
Yeah,
it'll be an interesting story to follow how she continues to move along. As long as we're talking about basketball, Buff fans, a reminder that the Boyle Bowl 2 is happening on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be right in the middle of the football game, unfortunately, but the Buffs are hosting Division 3 Pomona Pitzer in an exhibition game Saturday afternoon. Begins at 3 at the CU Event Center. So, I don't know I guess if things are maybe going bad within the first hour of the football game, you can roll on over to the Event Center, check out some exhibition basketball. Pete Boyle, Tad Boyle second son plays for Pomona Pitzer. They did this a number of years ago when his older son Jack played for Pomona Pitzer. Well, now it's Pete's turn as a senior there. Kind of come back. He played at Boulder High just like his older brother. So nice little homecoming for the Boyles. And we forget about this, but just as you and I obviously we juggle a lot of our work with trying to get to our kids stuff. But for those of you that have kids in sports out there, Tad Boyle, he gets paid a lot of money to do what he does at CU, but one of the sacrifices is not being able to watch his sons play very often. He's watching them on his laptop or sometimes on a recording of it later. But it's a nice little opportunity to get Pete in the gym. He works out there a lot in the summertime anyway, and kind of get this Boyle matchup. It's nice for Tad to be able to. He's done a lot at CU. Nice for Tad to be able to kind of get his son's team into the gym, and for the team, just we're at the stage of the preseason where you've been beating up on each other for 4 weeks. So nice to get a little exercise and a little workout in against a team that's not your own across from you.
yeah, it'll be fun to see that for those who get to go see that. And Aaronette Von Lay is going to Kansas City, by the way. So, and
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll actually both be out at the Buffs have local basketball media day on Monday before they all head out to Kansas
Yep.
City. So we'll have some coverage of that. So lots of basketball next week, even as the Buffs prep for a football game against Cincinnati, before another bye week. But other things, soccer, they've got some big things coming up, volleyball as well. You want to talk about those two sports?
Yeah, real quick. First, the volleyball's been red hot lately. They've got 3 wins in a row for the first time this season. Uh, we had said from the outset, it's kind of a new look group that would hopefully get better as the season went on, as they log more time together. Now they haven't played a lot of the Big 12's best yet, but they've won 3 in a row. They're playing a lot of 5-set matches and are coming out ahead in most of them. They're 6-3 now in 5-set matches, including all three on this little win streak that they've put together, culminating with a win just the other night against Arizona in Tucson. Next up, Friday night against Arizona State will be a little tougher. Arizona State's number 13 in the nation, has been playing really well, so it'll be a new challenge for this Buffs team. But they're showing the progress. It's got to be encouraging for head coach Jesse Mahoney. One thing to kind of have a script and hope it kind of comes to fruition, but hopefully, kind of seeing that come about and seeing this improvement happening in the early stages of Big 12 play certainly has to be encouraging. They've gotten 2 of these 3 wins in a row on the road and are doing well in the close matches, like I said. So tough one on Friday night. We'll see how that goes, and they'll be home for a couple again next week. They can go check out, including one against nationally ranked BYU, who the Buffs lost to early in the Big 12 schedule. And soccer, big weekend for soccer. They stumbled a little bit of late after a 10-game unbeaten streak. They're winless in 3 in a row now. Now, 2 of those have been ties, and one of those was a tie against a pretty quality team in Texas Tech on the road.
Hmm.
However, they're bunched real tight. It's for that top 4 spot. The Big 12 playoff, they have a tournament in the Big 12. We didn't have one of those in the Pac 12. Going into this weekend, only 3 games remain in the regular season. And the Buffs are obviously going to be in the Big 12 tournament. They cut it off at 12. The lower 4 teams do not qualify, but the top 4 teams get a bye in that Big 12 tournament. Kind of similar format to what we've been used to in the Pac 12 basketball tournaments, where the first 4 get a bye
Yeah.
and the other 8 play each other to play into it. The Buffs are right in that mix and still not out of the race for the conference championship, but a big weekend on the road here. Thursday night against Cincinnati, and then a big one against West Virginia to follow on Sunday. West Virginia is also in that mix. West Virginia plays Texas Tech previously to the Buffs this weekend, so that'll be a key result going into that Sunday matchup. And then they close the Buffs do next week at home against Utah on Friday night. So still a lot to play for. The Buffs aren't out of the race for the conference championship even. It'll be a tough road. The 2 teams they've played, they haven't picked up a win. Obviously got crushed by TCU and then the tie against Texas Tech. So might need some help on that front. But as far as getting in the top 4 and getting that first round bye, it's all right there for the Buffs. But a big weekend on the road against Cincinnati and especially West Virginia on Sunday. And then real quick, cross country pre-national meet on Saturday in Madison, Wisconsin. They've had a few meets so far. It's kind of been B team and C team lineups for the new look cross country. But I think we'll get a real look at maybe what this team is capable of next month at the Nationals with this pre-national meet that they always have, a little more than a month out from the actual Nationals. So look for that on Saturday, and we'll probably give the best indication so far of just where this kind of new look program is at under first year coach Sean Carlson.
Awesome. So lots of things coming up. Obviously, it's a huge weekend for Colorado athletics. Soccer, volleyball, cross country, big football game, basketball exhibition. So lots of things come up with the Buffs. This is our busy time of the year as we get into approach November. The overlap of football and basketball. So it's starting, and but right now we're focused on football and the start of the second half. So should be a fun weekend, Pat.
Yeah, be busy. You'll be heading to Tucson. I'll be heading out on Monday to Kansas City. Looking forward to stuffing my face with some barbecue, a barbecue joint I fell in love with last year. So that's I guess, a new perk of the traveling because they'll be going back there for Big 12 tournament also in Kansas City. So it's now a regular stop. But looking forward to it and looking forward to your coverage from Tucson.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you next week, and yeah, well, that'll wrap it up for this week, and we'll see everybody next week.
As always, folks, thanks for listening.